Good morning, brothers and sisters. Happy Sabbath day. Welcome to another episode of Did You Know, where I ask a question of a specific topic and I answer through the scriptures. Before we get started today, sisters and brothers, I need to make a correction from last week because last week I said that Twinkies were unclean, and that's not true. Twinkies are clean. So I'm making a correction, sisters and brothers, and letting you know that Twinkies are clean. And from what I hear, they've been clean for a long time. They were unclean for a while, but now they're clean. So I just want to make that correction. Okay, so did you know that in the beginning, God made two to become one? If you didn't know, I'm going to show you through the scriptures. Okay, sisters and brothers, so this is going to be a two-part lesson. I'm going to do part one today and part two next Sabbath. And like I said, I'm going to show forth that in the beginning, God made two to become one. And that's the way he made it to be, and that's the way it still is now today. Okay, so we're going to start this off in Genesis, the first chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 27. Genesis 1 and 27. It says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." So in the beginning, when God made this man, he made two, male and female. And he told them two to be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. Okay? These two, male and female. He made two to become one. Well, you may say, well, then, he made two to become one, but these guys had more than one wife. And they did. And that's what we're going to deal with today. We're going to deal with the multiple wives. We're going to see who started multiplying their wives and what their main reason was for multiplying their wives. But I'm going to show you it was man's decision to do so, and God had nothing to do with it, because God made two to become one. Okay? So we're going to go to Genesis, the 4th chapter, because we need to see where or who started multiplying their wives. So we're going to go into Genesis, the 4th chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 16. Genesis 4 and 16. It says, "And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch." So Cain, which was Adam and Eve's firstborn son. They had Cain and they had Abel. Cain killed Abel. And when Cain killed Abel, the Lord disinherited Cain. Okay, so Cain went on, and like it said, he went from the presence of the Lord, and he dwelt in another part of Eden, and he knew his wife. Okay, his wife, Cain had his wife. Where did he get his wife from? From among his sisters. He had to get her from among his sisters because it wasn't nobody else. Okay, so, and once he had his wife, and she conceived, lay with her, and she conceived, she had a son. And his son started having sons, and let's see how it went. Verse 18. "And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech." Okay, so these boys, they multiplying. They starting to multiply. But mind you, this Cain seed that's multiplying. Okay? Verse 19. Let's see what happened with Lamech. Because once Lamech was born, this is what Lamech did. Verse 19. "And Lamech took unto him two wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah." So this is when men start to multiply wives. But this Cain seed, and I'm going to show you whose Cain seed works was after, because this is when it's first mentioned about somebody multiplying their wives. Lamech, Cain seed. Man, now he made this choice. This ain't God saying, okay, y'all can multiply wives. Man decided to do so. Let's get down to verse 25. It says, "And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God," she said, "hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew." So Adam and Eve, still one, two becoming one, Adam and Eve, they had them another son. And they called his name Seth. Now mind you, until Seth came along, Cain was the only one that was reproducing seed, having males and females, they was reproducing. Whereas with Adam and Eve, they hadn't had no more male children. Because the only two boys that they had was Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. So until Seth came along, which I think Adam was like 130 years old when he had Seth, it was just Cain's seed multiplying. Now, Adam may have been having some daughters in there, but it wasn't no more sons born until that time. Let's see what happened with Seth when he started having kids. Verse 26, and to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began man to call upon the name of the Lord. So when Seth started having his son, his first son, Enos, is when they started calling upon the Lord. So if this is when they started calling upon the Lord, who was Cain's seed dealing with? Mind you, Lamech multiplied in wives. First one to start multiplying in wives, which was Cain's son. Who was they dealing with? Let's find out. Let's go to 1 John, the 3rd chapter, and let me show you who Cain was dealing with, who and him as his seeds were dealing with, because man wasn't called upon the name of the Lord until Seth had his son Enos. Let's go to 1 John, the 3rd chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 11. 1 John 3 and 11. And look what it says. For this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteousness. So this is Cain. It says, let us love one another, not like Cain did, though, who was of what? That wicked one. And he slew his brother. Who is that wicked one that he was of? Let's back up to verse 8. I'm going to read verse 8. He that committed sin is of the devil, for the devil sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. That's that wicked one that Cain was of. He was doing the works of the devil. It says he that committed sin is of the devil. Hey, Cain committed the first sin by, well, I won't say the first sin, but he committed the first murder of man. He killed his brother. God said, thou shalt not kill. He killed his brother. They said he that sinneth is of the devil, and that's willfully sinning. Cain willfully killed him because Abel's works was better than his. So if he was doing the works of the devil, that's what his seed was doing, the works of the devil. And it was through his seed when men started multiplying wives. And it was so bad that with these guys with Cain's seed that the Lord had to make a distinguish or difference between Cain's seed and Seth's seed. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Let's go back to Genesis, the 6th chapter. Genesis chapter 6, because these guys started multiplying, having sons and daughters, and the Lord made a difference between Cain's seed and Abel's seed. I'm going to show you what I mean right here. Genesis, the 6th chapter, I'm going to start reading at verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So these guys started multiplying on earth. Who? Cain's seed and Seth's seed. Okay? And they started having sons and daughters. And it says, but the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Who was the sons of God? Seth's seed. It said that with Seth's seed, with his son Enos, that they started calling upon the name of the Lord. Well, nobody dealing with God until Seth's seed came along. So those are the sons of God, which means Cain's seed, or the daughters of men, those were Cain's sons' daughters. Okay, so the Lord saw this. He said, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, which means them girls was fine. You know, these beautiful women, but they was wicked because they was of Cain's seed. And it said Cain's work was of the works of the devil. He was of the devil. He was of that wicked one. So if he was of that wicked one, his seed was the same way. Okay? But it said that the sons of God started taking these girls. Look what the Lord said when he saw that the sons of God started taking Cain's daughters. Look what he said. And verse 3, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So the Lord said, my spirit ain't going to always strive or be with this man. This man ain't going to always do what I say. What spirit is he talking about? His word. This man ain't going to always listen to my word and do what I say do. Why? Because he said he flesh, and he starting to lust. His lust of the flesh is what he going to do. And what was he doing? Dealing with this woman. Dealing with Cain's daughters. That woman going to change his mind. And they was fine because he said Cain's daughter was fair, which means the daughters of Seth, them daughters must not have been as good looking as them daughters that Cain had. But the Lord knew them girls, them women was going to change these guys' mind. He said, my spirit ain't going to always strive them, so I'm going to have to cut their years down because they were supposed to live 1,000 years. He said, I'm going to cut it down to 120 years. And it got so bad, when they got to multiplying, and the sons of God hooked up with these daughters, and these men got more wicked, until the Lord was just out killing them all. And look what the Lord decided to do. Verse 5. Let's get down to verse 5. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. When the Lord saw this, the thoughts of his heart was only evil continuously. What was one of the thoughts that they had? To start multiplying their wives. And for whatever reason they did, because like I said, the biggest reasons was to make babies. They wanted babies. But the majority of the time, or a lot of the times from what I've read and from what the examples I got, it was these women who was giving these men or their husbands another wife, to have babies through them. The women was doing this, so it wasn't just the men that was seeking after to have another wife. These women were the ones who were saying, hey, bear children through my handmaid, and I'm going to show you that. But the Lord said these things got wicked, so wicked to the point that he destroyed the earth. And when he destroyed the earth and did it all over again, let's see who he used. When he used the man, because he used Noah. How many wives did Noah have? One. How many wives did his sons have? One. Why? Because he made two to become one. Let's skip down to verse 8. It says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just and perfect man in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So Noah had 3 sons by who? By his one wife. He said, the Lord said Noah was a just and righteous man, perfect and righteous in his generation. But he only had one wife. He didn't multiply no wives. He had one wife. And that's what he was part of those sons of God. Noah was, because it said he walked with God. Skip down to verse 18. Look what it says. He said, but with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. He saved 8 people out of the whole creation. It was Noah, his one wife, his 3 sons, and their one wife. 2 becoming one. He did it the same way he did with Adam and Eve. Only difference is that it's 3 of these guys that's going to be multiplying and replenishing the earth, and whereas it was just Adam and Eve. He got Noah, his 3 sons, they're going to do it faster. But everybody from Cain's seed was wiped out. Now, one of Cain's seed made it through this flood, because Noah came from Seth's seed. He wiped out all of Cain's seed. Now, I'm not saying he did this because they started multiplying the wives. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that Cain's seed was the first to multiply wives, and the Lord destroyed his whole seed, Cain, in that flood. He took Noah, his one wife, and his 3 sons, and their one wife. And he told them the same thing he told Adam and Eve: be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. He took 2 to become 1. Let's check out another guy. Let's go to another brother and see him multiplying the wives. So we're going to go check out Abraham. Let's go into Genesis, the 16th chapter. Sisters and brothers, the Lord made it the way he wanted to make it, and man chose to do it differently. Man chose to go against the course that the Lord set. Just like man did in the beginning, the Lord created man to live forever. Man chose to listen to that wicked one, which was Satan. Rather, man chose to listen to his wife, who listened to Satan. But anyway, man was supposed to die. But they found a way to bring death upon themselves by listening to Satan. Same way with this whole multiple wives thing. God made 2 to become 1. And man chose to start having more than one wife. Like I said, for whatever reason they chose for, whether it was just for to satisfy the needs of the flesh, or because they wanted to multiply them babies faster. Because Lamech, he took on 2 wives. He probably was like, man, I can have double the babies if I take on another one. And them other guys probably saw that, and everybody, it became a custom. Especially if them women were barren and couldn't have babies. Hey, man, they usually took their handmaidens and gave them to their husband so they could have babies through their handmaid. And this is what happened with Abraham and Sarah. Chapter 16, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. 16 and 1. Genesis 16 and verse 1. It says, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. And she had an handmaiden, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. So Sarah couldn't have no kids. but she had a handmaiden. Okay, let's see what she did. Verse 2. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. His wife told him, I can't have no babies. Take my handmaiden, and I'm going to have babies through her. Abraham didn't decide, well, hey, look, I'm finna take this woman because Hagar had been with him for a while, and I'm going to show you that. He didn't make this decision. His wife said do this. Why? Because she couldn't have no babies. At least she hadn't had no babies at this point in time. And she understood and knew why she didn't have no babies. Because like she said, behold, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. So she understood and knew it was the Lord who opened and closed the womb. She told Abraham to take her handmaiden. Let's see what happened after that. Because Abraham listened to her. And come on now, brother. What man wouldn't if your wife say, hey, look, I want you to take this woman. I want you to lay with her and have us a baby. What man wouldn't be like, no, baby, I ain't going to do that. I mean, I'm just saying, you know. But she brought this to him. Verse 3, look what happened. Okay. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. So she gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. Like I said, Abraham didn't think to do this thing. Like they had been in Canaan for 10 years. And he ain't thought once to go into Hagar, even though I know he wanted babies too. He wanted a son because that was huge for them back then. Having them babies, especially a son, man, if them women brought for a being child, man, they was the greatest thing ever. But that's what they wanted. But she gave him to, now look what happened. Look what came out of this, her giving her handmaiden to her husband. Look at this, verse 4. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Look at this thing. Now look at the confusion that's finna come along with this. When Abraham lay with her, Hagar, and she conceived, she got pregnant. Now she despising her mistress in her eyes, which means she hates Sarah now. Why? Because I'm having the babies. Like I said, that was the big thing. That was huge for them. So why should I be the bondwoman or the handmaid and you be the wife? Because that's what she was. Even though she said take her to be his wife, she wasn't wife. And I'm going to show you that she was still bondwoman or handmaid. But she despised her now, which means now hatred then came in. These two women finna hate each other and have discord with each other from the point on. Look what happened, verse 5. And Sarah said unto Abraham, my wrong be upon thee. Whoa, wait a minute. What she mean her wrong be upon thee? Because she knew she shouldn't have gave her handmaid to her husband to lay with him, to a wife or to become his wife like she said. She saw that thing was wrong. Look what she said. And Sarah said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. See, man, this thing was not a Lord. And when she did that thing and saw how she was despised now in her in Hagar's eyes, hey man, she said that thing wasn't right. I should have did that. I gave my handmaid into the bosoms of my husband. She knew that thing was wrong. And like I said, her and Hagar was at it from that point on. She hated her and they hated one another. But this will come when you go against the course of nature, because the Lord made two to become one. They went against that. And now you got confusion, discord, hatred. This is what's going to come about this. Look, let's go into Genesis 21st chapter. Because eventually Sarah had her own baby. And if she just had been a little patient, she wouldn't have had to do that thing. You know, even though, like I said, it was a normal custom probably for them to do that thing at that point in time, because Abraham's father had multiple wives. So they probably had been seeing this thing going on, but that don't mean that made it right. That don't mean it was done righteously, the way they was doing what they was doing, because God made two to become one. And if you do anything outside of that, you're going to have confusion, discord. Oh, you may have them babies come out of it, which is what you was looking for. But you're going to have a hard time dealing with them women. Chapter 21, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. And Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age at the set time which God had spoken to him. So Sarah eventually had that baby that the Lord said she was going to have, had Isaac in their old age. I believe Abraham was 100 and she was like 90 or something like that. But they had the baby. They had a son. Now look what happened, because Hagar's still in the picture. Look what happened. We're going to skip down to verse 9. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son. For the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. Look at what Sarah did. She said, cast out this bondwoman and her son. Now, wait a minute. I thought she wanted Hagar to have that baby for her. No, man, because once that hatred kicked in, they started despising one another. Sarah didn't want nothing to do with her. She knew that thing wasn't right. And why didn't she call Hagar Abraham's wife? She said, wherefore she said, cast out that bondwoman and her son. Why she didn't say cast out your wife, your other wife, and her son? Because she wasn't wife, but wife status like Sarah was. Even though she was still Abraham's wife because he laid with her, had a baby with her, but she didn't have that status like Abraham. She was still considered a bondwoman. Look at this, how Abraham reacted to things, because Abraham didn't want to do that thing, because this was still his son, this was still his seed, and it was still his only son before Sarah had Isaac. So he grew up with this boy, growing up with this boy, and that was his son, his firstborn. That's who he was. So Abraham was grieved about this thing. Verse 11. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, let it be not grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of the bondwoman. And all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Hey, the Lord had to step in and let Abraham know, hey man, don't let this thing grieve you like that. Don't let this thing grieve you like this. Look what the Lord told him. He said, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of who? The bondwoman. Why the Lord didn't say because of the lad and your other wife? Because he made two to be one. He didn't acknowledge her as his wife like that. He said that bondwoman. He said, don't be grievous. He said, don't be grievous and don't let it be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of the bondwoman. He said, and all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, and in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Verse 13, and also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And he still didn't acknowledge her as Abraham's wife. He said, and also of the son of the bondwoman. Don't worry about it, because I'm going to make him a great nation. And he did. Ishmael, which is where you get your Arabs from. Great nation. Great nation. But look at the contention that was between Sarah and Hagar. Look at how they hated one another, even to the point where she told her to, hey, put him out. And Abraham did it because the Lord told him to do it. And look how he put her away. Look at verse 14. And Abram rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. He gave her bread and water, and he sent her and that baby on about this way. And I'm not going to say baby because Ishmael wasn't no little baby at this point in time. He had to be about, I think, 16 or something. I'm not sure. But sent them on their way. And the Lord told them to do that. But look at the confusion and the contention that came with it. Why? Because God made two to become one. And they went against the course of what the Lord said. And this is what came out of it. Let's look at another example. Let's go into Genesis, the 29th chapter. Because I want to show you another example with another brother who multiplied in wives. But I'm going to show you once again, it was his wife who wanted him to do this. For what purpose? To have babies. Genesis, the 29th chapter. Let's back right back up to Genesis, the 29th chapter. Let me show you something. Genesis chapter 29. And we're going to look at Jacob. We're going to look at Jacob and his wives, because Jacob had 4 wives, okay? And let's see how he got the first one and so on. We're going to start reading at verse 16. Genesis 29 and 16. It says, and Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Okay, so he had 2 daughters, Laban. This was Jacob's uncle. Okay, had 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel. It said Leah was tender-eyed, which means she wasn't all that good-looking. She wasn't the best-looking thing. She was tender-eyed. I guess that's the Bible way of calling her. Not want to say she ugly, but she was tender-eyed. Okay, she wasn't the best-looking thing. But Rachel said she was beautiful and well-favored. Once again, one of these fine women. Let's see who Jacob chose. Verse 18, and Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. So Jacob loved Rachel. Why did he love her? Because she was beautiful and well-favored. She was a fine sister. And more 9 times out of 10, the brother wants the best-looking woman that's out there. You know, I don't want a sister. A sister ain't all that good looking. I want her. He said, I'll work for you for 7 years for her. Laban agreed. Go ahead. I'd rather give it to you than somebody else. Work for me the 7 years and you can have her. At this point in time, Jacob became betrothed, or they became betrothed to one another, which means she was his wife now, because that's what betrothed means. Let me show you. I got a definition. Let me show you this right quick. The definition of betrothed. It says, what is the difference between engaged and betrothed? Unlike an engagement, which sets an intention to marry, a betrothal ceremony requires the couple to commit to marriage. So that's what a betrothal was. If you was betrothed to someone, that means you was committed to marry them at a certain set of point in time. And what was to consummate that marriage? When you lay with each other. The two became one. Okay, so it was like the marriage was the whole thing was a 2-part thing. If you was betrothed to someone at whatever certain time, when that time came up, and it was a serious thing. That was serious. They had betrothal ceremonies. You know, that was a serious thing. Okay, so once you betrothed to someone, they become yours until y'all consummate that thing, which means when you lay together. And let me show you what I mean, because he worked for her for 7 years, and when it was over, he wanted his wife. Verse 21. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. Give her his what? His wife. Because she's betrothed to him. She's his. They committed to one another. And he said, if you work for 7 years, you can have her. They was betrothed to one another. So he said, give me my wife. So he can do what? So I can consummate this thing and really make her my wife. You know. Hey, this is the way it was. So let's see what happened with this thing. Because him and Rachel, he did his thing. Now Rachel, already his wife. Now he gonna lay with her to really, like I keep saying, consummate the whole thing. Verse 22. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. Now look how Laban deceived Jacob like this. He took his daughter Leah and gave him her instead of Rachel. And you say, well, how can Jacob have done it? He loved Rachel so much because they had this feast, and evidently they got this boy sloppy drunk. Gave him Leah. He lay with her. Now she his wife. Look at this, verse 25. Verse 24. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, as an handmaid. So he gave Leah Zilpah a handmaiden. And we got to remember that he gave her Leah a handmaid, because he's going to give Rachel a handmaiden as well. Verse 25, and it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore hast thou beguiled me? Hey man, why you trick me like that? I worked for Rachel and you gave me Leah. Laban was like, well man, you know it ain't like I'm going to get my older before my younger. Work for me 7 more years and I can give you Rachel too. He did that, worked 7 more years, and he got Rachel. Skip down to verse 28. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. So he gave Rachel a maid as well. So now Jacob got Leah and Rachel, and both of them got a handmaid. Let's see what happened. Verse 30. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served him yet 7 other years. So he loved Rachel more. He said that in the beginning, though, that's who he wanted. Which means now Leah don't get the short end of the stick when it comes to the whole love thing, because he didn't love her. Even to the point so that she was hated. Look at this, verse 31. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. So the Lord saw that this woman was hated. And maybe not by Jacob, but I'm sure Rachel hated her. You took my husband because I was supposed to be his wife. You know, but their father took her and gave her to Leah to him before Rachel was. I know Rachel hated her for that. And they contended with each other from that point on. And when Leah was the one that was having the babies, Rachel was even more so despising her sister because of that thing. Because she not only is she got my husband, but she the one having babies and I ain't having none. So look what Rachel did. Let's go right into chapter 30. Right into chapter 30, and it's going to be our last script, sisters and brothers, chapter 30, because all I'm trying to show forth to show you is that God created 2 to become 1. And when these multiple wives start coming along, this was man's decision to do forth that. Just like it was man's decision when Israel decided they wanted a king. The Lord said, hey, I was their king, but let them do it. And he told them the things this king was going to take them through and the things this king was going to do. And he said, in my anger, I gave them a king. In my fury, I took it away. But he allowed them to have that king. Same way with this thing right here. The Lord didn't set up for them to multiply these wives. You know, even though he made provisions for them in the law because he knew they was going to do this. But he set it up for 2 to become 1. And if you go against that, you ain't going to have none but troubles and confusion with it. Guys, he not the author of confusion. Man, these women was always at each other. Chapter 30, look at this. We're going to start reading at verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children or else I die. Hey man, this thing was grievous on her. I can't have no kids. She's steady having kids. Give me children or I die. And I know these women was in Jacob ear left and right. You don't think when Abraham had Sarah and Hagar that Sarah wasn't always in Abraham's ear? Look, man, you got to do something with this woman. Do something with this woman, her child. This woman, her child. This woman, her child. This woman, her child. Hey, man, that's the way it is when you go against the course of things. I'm quite sure Jacob had hell going through with these women he had because the 2 at first, him and just them 2 sisters was enough. But he said, Rachel was like, hey, I'm going to die if you don't get me no child. So look what she decided to do. Verse 3. And she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. So she did the same thing Sarah did. Take my handmaid. She said, take my handmaid. Jacob didn't decide to take her handmaid and say, hey, well, look, since you can't have no babies, Rachel, I'm going to lay with her and I'm going to make her my wife. And No. This woman decided that. His wife decided, hey, I'm going to have babies through my handmaid. And that's what he did. He laid with her, she had a baby. He laid with her again, and she had another baby. Skip down to verse 8, and look what Rachel said when she had that second baby. Verse 7, I mean. And Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, or Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. So she was like, I've been wrestling with my sister for the long time. Great wrestling with her. Now I'm having some babies now. Now look what Leah decided to do. Verse 9. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. So once again, she did the same thing her sister did. Now Jacob got 4 wives now. But all he wanted was one. All he wanted was Rachel. Her father tricked him into taking Leah. He knew he couldn't get rid of her because he laid with her. So he got Leah and Rachel now. Now he got Rachel's handmaid and Leah's handmaid because they wanted more babies. Had nothing to do with the Lord. This is man who chooses and chose to go forth with these multiple wives. And like I said in the beginning, the main reason that they had for it at that point in time, at least one of the main reasons was because them women wanted more babies. And them men as well. That's probably why Lamech, Cain's son, did it. He wanted more babies. So this thing with these multiple wives, this man doing. Man chose to do that, and man suffered the consequences behind it come with it, because like I said, ain't nothing good coming out of it. Yeah, you may have them babies. You may have a gang of babies, But the trouble and the confusion and the heartache that's going to come behind it, dealing with them women. So, did you know that in the beginning, God made two to be one? If you didn't, you do now. And I thank you for your time, sisters and brothers. And once again, I attend the Israel of God Bible Study located at 520 West 138th Street in Riverdale, Illinois. The number is 708-392-1320. And the website is the www.theisraelofgod.com. And hit that share button, sisters and brothers. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath day, and thank you. Peace.